Hello.
And welcome back to Party Chick Astrology. I'm Nina.
I'm Shaina.
And this is the seventh house. Okay.
Local 7th house stellium residents.
Yeah, so actually, we have a lot to say about the 7th house.
Yeah.
In fact, between the two of us, we almost have every single planet in the 7th house.
Yeah, I think we're missing 3.
Yeah.
Malefics. Mars,
I
Saturn,
know.
and
Thank
Pluto.
God.
Oh my god, I'm thinking away with that.
No. But we both have stelliums in the 7th house. I have 5, she has 4.
Mm-hmm.
Two of our planets are personal planets in both cases. So we have a lot to say about the 7th house. And in fact, we've had a lot to say about all of the houses.
Yeah, I've had to cut out a ridiculous amount of stuff.
Yeah, so we're thinking that we're going to change the format for these videos.
Mm-hmm.
And this video is just going to be talking about the 7th house, and tomorrow we'll upload a video that is breaking down the planets in the houses.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will be more easily digestible.
Mm-hmm.
It'll definitely be easier for the camera and the editing and all of that.
In true Pisces mid-heaven form, we are changing.
Halfway through, changing format. But as always, we are going to have our accompanying blog post. It's going to come out today.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram for updates and everything. Our readings are coming back in stock real soon.
Yeah.
In fact, by the time that this video is up, our readings are back in stock.
Do you want to put them up when this video goes back?
Sure, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
You should keep that into the thing. What a Pisces is. Our readings are back in stock.
Officially today.
Today,
our readings are back in stock.
Get yours now! partychicastrology.com/shop. In addition to our readings, we also have an astrology course for you to learn how to integrate everything about your own chart and read other people's charts. It'll be the same place you can find our readings, and it is coming out as soon as this series is over. So get it while you can, get it while it's hot.
We are on to the 7th house. This is our 3rd angular house. It's a big one.
Yes, it is the house ruled by Libra.
Mm-hmm.
And up until this point, you are pretty much half a person.
Yeah.
Right? So let's recap. First house, first impression. You were born and they were like, this is you. Second house, this is what I have. This is what makes me feel valuable. Third house, go to school. What are you gonna learn? Come home from school. Fourth house, this is how I feel safe and secure. Whatever is going on
not
when
safe and secure.
when I get home.
When you get home.
Fifth house,
Time to fun. Fuck this place. Fuck home.
after school activities.
Yeah.
What am I gonna make? What am I about? And how can I share that?
Arts and crafts time.
Woohoo! Sixth house. Oh my god, how do I deal with my life on a day-to-day schedule?
Fuck, I was gonna go to a party, but now I got work in the morning. And now
I gotta make sure that I set my alarm. And
okay, got all me shit figured out. Now it's time to just look around me. Who's around me? Who's gonna join me in this journey? What am I not also? I'm all these things. I'm all these 6 things, but what am I not? What is everybody else?
Well, it's kind of like...
What is the other?
You get to the 7th house, and you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm done, right? I did everything. I set my alarm.
Yeah.
All the props are set. The curtain is ready. The lights are set, because I'm the stage manager of my own life.
True.
I'm done. There's nothing else that can, surprise me.
And then people come in and you're like, fuck!
Oh, okay. There is a whole other
world.
Half
of me.
Of this chart that I live in. That is me. That is my life.
If houses 1 through 6 are all about you.
Yeah.
And then the 7th house kicks it out, and it's like, well, what about what's around you?
Yes.
What about, 7 through 12 are all about kind of everything that's not you. Of course, you're still included in it because it's your houses, but it's much more affected by external forces than the 1st through the 6th houses.
It is the house ruled by Libra, so it rules marriage, but it also rules the shadow side and essentially your other half in every single way. So
relationships, not just marriage. It rules not the 5th house fun relationships, not the 8th house intense, like we're stuck together relationships, but the 7th house relationships.
Yes.
Friendships, partnerships, long-term committed relationships.
The things you can't discover in yourself without it being shown to you. It is your descendant. So this is your ascendant. What's right in front, what everyone can see.
Yeah, what you see when you look in the mirror.
Yeah, but then your shadow side is your descendant, is your 7th house. So we talk about our descendants along with our ascendant series. We touch on your accompanying descendant, but the 7th house is so much more than just that cusp.
Because it is a kind of paradox in itself, because it's everything you think you're not but you unconsciously are. 7th house is kind of like when you look to the outer world, how you just group everybody together. The traits that you associate with everybody having. So like a good example for Capricorn, I grew up being like, everybody works harder than me. Everybody's a hard worker. I need to prove myself to show I'm a hard worker because I'm a Cancer rising and I don't see myself as that way, even though, you know, I'm on the 7th house of so I am, blah, 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 and you are your 7th house. It's kind of what you're going to think of everyone else. Leo in the 7th house, you're going to be like, everybody has such a big ego. You know, oh my god, I just need to please everybody's ego all the time.
Libra risings will have Aries in the 7th house. Everyone is so much more confident than I am.
Oh yeah. Yeah, everybody's so much more assertive, So it's everything that you think you're not.
Yeah.
But also, in the flip side, everything that people see in you. That when they're not talking to you face to face, because I'm seeing Nina's rising, she's putting on a rising. But when Nina goes and turns around and talks to another friend, I go, oh, and you see kind of the interaction from the farther away. You're seeing more of their descendant, or depending on how far you could be seeing their midheaven. Like you're trying to view their shadow side. You're trying to view what they're not showing you.
Exactly. When you look at yourself, what you project onto other people is your 7th house. You know that
it's this house of projection.
Yeah, you'll always hear people say like, oh, you think that of so-and-so because deep down that's how you are. And that's what you're gonna reject. You're gonna reject your 7th house.
No, I'm not.
I'm not like that. No. This is that person's issue.
Yeah.
But everyone is showing you your shadow side. Everything that you see in other people is a reflection of yourself. And the most poignant things that other people show you are the most important things that you need to assess within yourself.
This is why people with 7th house planets, they'll get the bad rap of being, oh, you're only blank when you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
You're only like this, you can only be like this. That's because you can't access it yourself, because your 7th house is also what you're denying yourself. And to a certain extent, like Pisces in the 7th house, Virgo risings are going to be like, everybody's delusional, but I'm not delusional. Being delusional is bad. Everybody's ridiculous. Nobody's grounded. But then you attract all these delusional people, and then you start going, oh, maybe I am a little, maybe I thought I was so grounded, but maybe they're the realistic ones. Maybe I'm delusional, And then that's very much bringing out that shadow side of you. That side that you immediately were like, fuck it, I'm not this. I refuse to see it. But then other people are going to make you see it.
You'll notice how healthy your 7th house is, or how healthy your relationship to your sun in your 7th house or certain personal planets in your 7th house is, depending on how you view other people, what your immediate reaction to other people is, how you accept other people's traits.
You can see how accepting you are of other people through your 7th house as well.
And so how accepting you are of yourself. Yesterday, I was actually listening to someone talk about this book called The Art of Seduction. Like, one tip to seduce someone, and this is from a totally psychological perspective, not incorporating astrology at all, but that book teaches you to find the person's shadow side and affirm it.
Yeah.
And that is a lot about why relationships work. Relationships work a lot if there's some 7th house influence going on. I realized...
It's all about that affirmation, it's that validation.
Yeah. I have attracted a lot of Libra risings into my life. And I'm like, what is that about? Then I was going through kind of what of mine falls in what of their houses. I always thought, why would a Libra rising ever really be attracted to me if their 7th house is Aries and I have an Aries interception? I have Saturn in Aries. So Saturn in the 7th house is going to make someone very committed to you. That's all to say that there is a school of thought that is very psychologically oriented, that people study when they get psychology degrees, that directly affirms how the 7th house works in the birth
chart. It's so true. People from astrology, they don't even know they are.
I know.
It's so almost comical. See, what I was just thinking about just now, Nina said that because she has an Aries interception. So I was thinking about the fact that, like, my roommate has Taurus in the 7th house. Nina's attracted a lot of Libra risings with Aries in their 7th house. And not having those traits that are in their 7th house, you'd automatically think I think that's a negative thing. People are looking for their 7th house. But I think there's something to be said that's interesting about thank God you're not like everyone else.
So if your interception falls into your partner's 7th house,
that partner will probably feel like, oh good, you're not all these negative traits that I can see everybody as. Because after you get hounded by Aries and Aries and Aries and Aries and Aries, you're like, I'm so tired of attracting all these people that are about me. You find the person with that interception and you're like, oh, thank God you're nothing like my other friends. This is a relief.
Yeah. But at the same time,
Yeah.
our brain likes to be right.
Yeah.
Our brain likes things that are familiar. So you'll see time and time again, whether they are positive patterns or negative patterns, people follow the same patterns in dating, in relationships.
Seventh house is the seventh house, and that's what we're going to be looking for unconsciously in a weird way. It's good to recognize it. Like, it is your type. Like, if you're like, what's my type? You look to your seventh house to see your type. And people who are like, this is my type, I know what it is, they probably have an empty seventh house. They have probably one, you know, if you have an empty seventh house, you just have that cusp in there. You know your type. You know, like it's Taurus. Cancer. Like, I'm attracted to mom types. Like, I want somebody to mom me, you know? And then people like me, Nina, with the seventh house signs would be like, we don't have a type. But that's because our type is so highly specific that there's like one person that's like that.
I've always thought there's only one person in the world out there for me.
Yeah.
Because it is so specific what's going on in my seventh house.
When you have so many planets in the seventh house, there's a much clearer picture. So people with an empty seventh house, I think, are going to be in more relationships because there are going to be more people that satisfy their seventh house. If you have something that lines up, like even if you have like something like Scorpio with Mars in there, that's going to be very turbulent, but you know your type. You want Mars kinds of people. You know, it's not so many things, it's not these contrasting things, just looking for Mars. You have a vaguer picture of who you're looking for. But when you have like a stellium or a lot of planets in the seventh house, or maybe things that don't talk to each other well, that are colluding heads, you can almost have such a specific idea of who you're looking for that it could be more easily manifested because you know what you're looking for. So that's why Nina said, like, people with a lot of seventh house stuff, it's almost like a promise that you'll find that person. Not that it's a promise, I think of just in the sense of you know it so well that you'll know it when you see it.
Yeah.
You don't have to look through a lot of people because you know, no. Whereas a lot of people are like, you satisfy that one thing, but then there's so much to you. There's so much other stuff, you know, that you haven't encountered that's outside of the seventh house compatibility wise and what will work and what won't. But with the seventh house, if you have a lot of stuff, it's almost like you know what you're looking for. I've had a lot of friends that are very similar in nature because seventh house, you know?
Now, you might be listening to this and thinking, I'm doomed. I have malefic planets in the seventh house. I'm going to marry someone malefic, or I'm just going to keep attracting this malefic energy. I'm just going to keep on dating drug addicts and alcoholics and blah, 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 depending on whatever.
Abusive people. And you know, restrict people that restrict me.
Yeah, all that I ever hear from people is to stop going after that kind of person and to do something else. The seventh house is a really hard place to break that pattern.
Yes.
You need to be cognizant that these energies manifest themselves in different ways. Let's take Pisces in the seventh house, for example. Of course, you may be prone to dating drug addicts and alcoholics and messy, unorganized people, but if you can latch on to a different priority, if you can break that habit somehow, you're going to positively manifest someone who is sensitive,
all
and
the positive
intuitive. Exactly.
Traits. You know, younger in life, you'll probably find the people that are more negative expressions of those traits. You know, because negative, you know, we're young.
Yeah,
we're all fucking up here. And then when you're older, you might go, okay, these are the more progressed. Positive mature natures of these things, because even Pluto, as malefic as it is and as horrible relationships as you, not to get ahead of myself, you probably had when you were younger, or Scorpio in the seventh house, when you get older you might find that you're in the most committed relationship ever, and it's so strong because you've been all through that, you know?
There's a negative Mars and there's a fun Mars. You know? The more obvious way that a seventh house person manifests is being relationship oriented. Now, not everyone who has a seventh house stellium or a seventh house sun is relationship oriented, and the way that manifests can be a little trickier because it's a little less obvious, and that is of a person who not necessarily is geared towards romantic relationships, might even be more introverted and not even geared towards non-romantic relationships, but is going to have identity issues.
I think that is translated, but you also understand that
that relationship people also can have identity issues.
And the other way around. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, like what I was going to say is, you have to look to how your sun is talking to the seventh house. Nina has Aquarius stuff in her seventh house. Not all in Aquarius.
It has, what, 3 planets in Aquarius?
It's 3 out of the 5 of them. Aquarius is pretty happy in the 7th house. It's air and air. You know what I mean? So it's going to be more comfortable because it's reaffirming itself. But if you have like a Capricorn sun like I do, an Aries sun, a Cancer sun in the 7th house, it's not going to be as happy. So it's going to be a lot more stressed and a lot more fought against. So like the way that I could say it is, when I was young, I wanted a relationship but felt as though I shouldn't. So I spent a lot of my life conditioning myself to not want one. I wanted one, but it was more of like, I need to make sure that I don't need it. But in just the basic of it, you think like Nina grew up with much more like, I want to get married. She had a wedding when she was a little kid. You know what I mean? Yeah, and like when my friends had a wedding in elementary school, I was like, I'm the entertainer. I don't want anything to do with this.
And you also kind of thought
I thought it was stupid. I just thought it was a time to perform.
Also, you have to look at the nature of the planets in the 7th house. So with Venus in the 7th house, obviously there's going to be a really intuitive emphasis on love.
Yeah, and I think that no matter what, when you 7th house sun or 7th house planets or 7th house person, I don't think relationship is the word. I think other. You're other focused. What's going on with the other? What's happening with the other? What are they thinking? What are they doing? Da 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 da. And that's also why people with 7th house stuff are more into astrology. The more 7th house stuff you have, I can almost assure you, the more interested in astrology you are going to be, because you're more interested in the other.
Also, think about what I was saying earlier with the art of seduction. What you want to do to seduce someone is to find their shadow side and affirm it. That's what astrology does. Yeah. Astrology has seduced us.
So people with 7th house stuff, like if you're somebody watching, you have a lot of 7th house planets, I think it is so imperative to get into astrology or look into, because I think you'll find out a lot of stuff about yourself and a lot of stuff about your patterns that there's not really another way to describe.
I think a very important thing also to emphasize to 7th house people is that there's a big kind of feeling of waiting for your life to begin.
Oh yeah, yes.
Of once you get to that 7th house, that's when it is. Or like if it's very literal, like when I get married, that's when my life begins. And that's a catch-22, because the thing is, you can't just wait around for your life to begin. You can't ever, no matter what, if 7th house, 5th house, 4th house, whatever, wherever your concentration is, no matter who you are, you cannot expect your life to be fulfilled from outside sources. But it's especially important to relay this to the 7th house person, that you cannot wait for someone else to come and affirm you to begin your life. And that, in fact, the easiest way to get to your happiness that is going to be found in the 7th house, because I'm not gonna say that no, you are gonna find your happiness before the 7th house. You just can't rely on getting to the 7th house to find it. You need to cultivate your houses 1 through 6 first. You need to cultivate your individuality so that you don't get swept away by the 7th house.
And also, RuPaul's famous line of, if it's his, if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love anybody else? That's very 7th house stuff. And also something about the 7th house is, even if it's empty, that's the part that you won't find your person or those energies within you, even if it's just a house cuspid, that's still a whole sign that you're denying. If you don't take that shadow side and go, okay, because the shadow side, your 7th house is probably all the things that you look at as negative. You know what I mean? Like if you have Gemini, you're like, people who talk too much and like spew information that's not backed up, trash. Hate them all. Trash, trash, trash. Until you come and learn the good traits of Gemini or whatever is in your 7th house, you won't attract the right people, because you'll be attracting those negative Gemini people, not these upper manifestation of Gemini or whatever is in there. So you really have to take a hold of your shadow side and find the good qualities in it so that you attract those good people instead of keeping on attracting the malefic versions of even a positive planet. Because even something like the sun, you could attract somebody with really big ego issues. So then instead of denying that, you have to find the good side of the ego and find somebody that represents that.
Or you need to get in touch with your ego in some way, so that you're not compensating by being with someone who is all ego.
So when you're somebody with 7th house stuff, like more positive planets or luminaries, you're gonna be very likable. I mean, even if you have a malefic planet in there, it still can make you attractive. People can be attracted to you.
But if you have a 7th house concentration, likely you're going to be focused on the other, and the other is going to like that and like you.
Of course. The 7th house is paradoxical, because the 7th house person is all about for the other. Because the 7th house person knows that people like it when you talk about them. People like themselves. So therefore, you make yourself for others, so then in turn people will like you. It's a very seventh house thing.
It's a lot less straightforward identity than the first house.
Because it's the opposite of the straightforward identity. Alyssa Sharp kind of mentioned this in her video, and it always stuck out to me. People with seventh house stuff are very likable, like we said, but you find that when you get close to them, you'd be like, oh, they're great, but I would never
want to be like them
because what is like them?
Or just like, it seems like a lot of work.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of work to be a seventh house person.
It is, yeah, because you're not only maintaining yourself, you're so heavily maintaining everyone else around you in a weird way as well.
Or you are maintained by others.
Yeah,
it can
that's true.
One of two ways.
It's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
I mean,
the seventh house is kind of
as long as you're maintaining someone else, you are being maintained by the other.
Exactly. Anything in the seventh house can feel kind of like what doesn't belong to you, what you had to give to other people. It has a lot to do with conditioning. It has to do with kind of the things you don't accept in yourself, which is also why it's the shadow side, and why a lot of times we see these energies as more negative. That doesn't mean that they are inherently negative. Your first house is the traits that you think are good to show to the world. So of course you're going to think the opposite are what you shouldn't show and what are going to be hidden, but what you crave so much.
Yeah.
You know?
What you just kind of don't really want to associate. I would say that whatever's in the 12th house, you'll associate with it on your own, and you won't show it. But what's in the 7th house is maybe something, and the 8th house too, that you would more like to repress or ignore.
Yeah,
or that you're even
8th house is a
not
lot
conscious.
more intense. 7th house is a lot more unconscious.
Yeah.
8th house is like, this is in me and it's bad.
Yeah.
7th house is like, what? This totally is not in me.
I do not relate to this at all.
Cannot relate.
No. I'm not like that.
No.
That's you.
Yeah, that's your stuff. You're projecting me.
Don't stop projecting on me. I'm not like that.
And everybody's like, we all see
But it's
it.
weird when you have like good planets and they're like, yeah, I'm not emotional and loving. That's you.
That's you.
Don't put that on me. Stop. How can someone else compliment me? What will compliment me? That's also just
What do I like having around? I don't want to just experience this alone.
Nicole Brenny was saying that Venus represents death in a lot of ways because anything that you eat, for example, is dead, even plants, and that nurtures you. The 7th house, in a lot of way, is the death of the identity as far as you
the death
know.
of like you.
Yeah, as far as you know yourself, you have to kill that in order to create a cyborg hybrid of you and another person.
Yeah, because if you think of like the 2nd through the 6th house, you're like, these are my matters. These don't concern you. What am I showing you? What am I gonna do with you? Okay, so that is our 7th house video.
I hope that you enjoyed this new format. Make sure to check out the blog post, the astrology course, and our reading.
Yeah.
Back in stock.
And again, just because you have an empty 7th house, that's kind of a positive thing.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Is it? Depends.
You know what? You got what you got.
Yeah.
My ballet teacher.
Get what you get and don't make a fit. That was like my thing when I was a kid.
That's
what I was always told.
Always used to say, and my mom loved it. She carried it out through the entire
That's so
house.
much to Libra. My parents loved it too. Everybody was always like, you get what you get and you don't make a fit.
Anyway, we've rambled on.
On that note,
bye.
bye.
Thank you.